The idea behind diversification is simple. Don't bet everything on one outcome. That's sound financial advice. You don't want all your eggs in one basket. Problem is, too many investors equate diversification with spreading money around. They pick a handful of funds, mix in some different sectors, maybe add international exposure, then assume they've built something solid. But without understanding what each piece is doing or how it all fits together, they're not actually managing risk. They're just staying busy. Hi, I'm Demetriades. Today we're discussing why more holdings don't always mean more protection, the nature of true diversification, and how to create a portfolio that fits your life. I've worked with lots of investors over the years, and they often come to me with dozens of positions, funds, sectors, strategies, all layered together in the name of diversification. But when I ask them what each piece is doing, why it's there, what it's contributing to on the overall plan, there's often a long pause. Because they don't know. Not really. They've collected investments the way someone packs a suitcase for every possible weather condition. They've got gear for every scenario, but no plan for the actual trip they're on. That can become a problem when the market gets rough, when volatility hits, or headlines start to spiral. Those investors are the first to flinch. They move to cash. They second guess the plan. In those moments, the gap between owning a portfolio and believing in it becomes obvious. If you don't believe in your portfolio, you won't stick with it. And if you won't stick with it, even the best diversification strategy can't help you. Know your why when you diversify. Variety doesn't keep you grounded when things get hard, but understanding does. And that kind of understanding has to be built in from the beginning by design. You need to know what each piece is doing. What's there for growth? What's there for income? What gives you room to breathe? What helps you respond when life changes? When you have that kind of understanding, it builds confidence in your plan. So here's a question for you. Can you explain how your investments function? A portfolio isn't diversified just because it has lots of parts. If those parts overlap, react the same way to market shifts, or are all chasing the same type of return, you're not actually reducing risk. You're creating complexity without benefit. And that kind of structure doesn't hold up when things get tough. Your portfolio might look diversified on paper, but functionally, it's fragile. There's no margin when life shifts, no coordination between the parts, and nothing built to absorb real-world stress. Know your why when you diversify. So let's talk about what real diversification looks like and how you build it with purpose. It starts with deliberate design. Not just different names or sectors, but different risk sources, tax treatments, and timelines. Diversification by design includes a mix of assets that behave differently under various conditions. Stocks, bonds, real estate, maybe some alternatives, but more importantly, assets that serve different purposes. You want long-term growth, you want liquidity, you want reliable income, and depending on your situation, you may want parts of your portfolio that are tax-free, tax-deferred, or accessible without penalty. It's also about time. You're not just diversifying what you invest in, but when you'll need it. Some dollars might be for the next few years, travel, early retirement, helping family. Other dollars might be for 15 or 20 years down the road. The timing changes the risk. You don't want short-term money tied up in something unpredictable. And you don't want long-term money sitting in cash, falling behind. When you match your investments to when you'll need them, things get clearer. You know which dollars are set aside for the near future and which ones are meant to grow over time. Real diversification provides balance, so your portfolio can respond to different needs, different times, and under different conditions. Look, if you're struggling with understanding your portfolio, that's okay. It's a fixable issue. You just need to step back and do a thorough review. Remember, diversification is important, but it isn't the ultimate goal. Living well is. This is one of the reasons I created the 4D process. Your portfolio should fit your life. When the two are in sync, it's much easier to understand why different choices make sense. Know your why when you diversify. Let me give you a real-life example of how examining what you own and why can make a huge difference. A client I'll call Sharon came to me just a few years out from retirement. She'd done a good job saving, consistent contributions, automatic reinvestments, accounts with a few different firms. Her portfolio had more than 20 holdings, and on paper it looked well diversified. But once we sat down together, it became clear something was missing. Her conservative allocation was heavy on growth stocks. Her income funds didn't produce much income. Several of her positions overlapped. Different funds, but the same underlying companies. And when we looked at what she actually needed over the next 5 to 10 years, the structure didn't line up. There were plenty of holdings, but they weren't balanced, coordinated, or built to support the way she wanted to use her money. She wasn't getting the benefits of true diversification, which was a problem because her next chapter wasn't just about returns. It was also about impact. Know your why when you diversify. Sharon wanted to help her son and daughter buy a home. Nothing extravagant, just enough to ease the pressure and get them started. She's always talked about taking a cross-country road trip with her sister, something they've dreamed about since they were kids. And she wanted the freedom to support her church and a local scholarship fund that meant a lot to her late husband. But when she looked at her portfolio, she didn't feel confident saying yes to any of that. So we didn't start over, we started aligning. We clarified which dollars were there for short-term needs, which dollars were there for the long haul, and which parts could generate income now, and which were better left alone to grow. We cleaned up the overlap, simplified the structure, and gave every piece a job: cash flow, liquidity, growth, and giving. That's what effective diversification actually looks like. Not just spreading things out, but building each part to serve a different purpose. Sharon didn't leave with more investments. She left with more clarity. The next time her daughter called with a down payment question, she didn't hesitate. When she saw an opportunity to support a student through the scholarship fund, she didn't question it. Her portfolio wasn't just diversified on paper. It was diversified with purpose, around the life she wanted to live and the impact she wanted to make. It might seem counterintuitive, but sometimes simplification is key. Not for the sake of ease, but for the sake of discipline. Because the simpler something is to understand, the more likely you are to stay with it. You trust the process because you understand the plan. Know your why when you diversify. Think of it this way. A good coach doesn't give his team 50 different plays to memorize before the big game. Sure, it might look impressive on the whiteboard, but when the clock's running down and the pressure's high, nobody's reaching for page 37 of the playbook. They rely on a simple play that they understand and can run without questioning every move. Complexity might look smart, but conviction is what actually holds up under pressure. So simplify your portfolio, structure it, build it in a way you can actually stick with it. The best portfolio is the one that fits your life and supports your goals. I'm Keith Demetriades. Thanks for joining me today. And if this has helped you reframe how you think about your portfolio, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe for more conversations on intentional planning and stewardship. Be a savvy steward. Make your life count.